Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Welcome to Everybody's Business. I'm Max Chafkin.
And I'm Stacey Vanek Smith. And Max, in last week's episode, we decided to predict the future, what 2026 would hold. And as it turns out, we are already wrong. We're a week in.
Did not have the situation in Venezuela on our bingo cards, but luckily, David Papadopoulos, expert in all things economic in Latin America, is going to be here later in the show to tell us basically how we got here.
We will also be joined by the wonderful Deena Shanker, who will talk to us about many New Year's resolutions are made up of wanting to get in better shape, wanting to lose a little weight. Now, of course, with GLP-1s, that whole equation has changed, and the restaurant industry is actually cashing in on it, which is very interesting. Deena will join us to talk about that.
Yeah, an interesting and arguably gross portion of the show, but we'll get there. And for our underrated stories, we are going to continue our coverage of very old people doing very important jobs.
Absolutely.
And I have a story, Stacey, that will help people. Anyone's trying to, meet a new person in 2026. They're going to get tips and tricks from some of the smartest people in Silicon Valley. I can't say that any of these ideas are good, but it is kind of amusing.
But they are ideas. Okay, no bad ideas. No bad ideas.
Okay, Stacey, before we get to all of the bigger stories, wanted to hit a couple of news items, starting with the U.S. economy. It's early. What have we learned so far?
I think the big story right now is the job market. We got some very disappointing jobs numbers just in, and hiring is totally anemic. Layoffs are rising. And I think that's going to be just one of the big stories this year.
Yeah, the two bits of news I wanted to mention before we get to the meat of the show. One is that Trump went on a sort of truthing tear yesterday.
Yes, this is Truth Social, his social media platform.
Exactly. He was truthing right and left on yesterday as we're recording this. One of these was around executive pay for people who run defense contractors. The other is a proposed ban on private equity firms buying up single-family homes.
Yes, now, this is very interesting because this was very under the radar for me.
Yeah, and I think this is an issue that is big for both populist right-wingers as well as populist left-wingers. I haven't looked to see what Elizabeth Warren has said, but the kind of that wing of the Democratic Party has tended to like this kind of thing. Also the kind of, far right of the Republican Party, kind of the J.D. Vance area of the Republican Party. Now, I want to say, first of all, Blackstone, one of the big investors in buying up single-family homes and renting them to people, immediately fell yesterday. It fell 9%. It gained a little bit. It closed the day. I think it was down 5 or 6%. No one knows if this is going to happen. And I think we should kind of put a pin in this and maybe talk about it sometime later this year, because it raises all sorts of kind of important questions about why have rents gone up so much? Why have home prices gone up so much? And, Trump is at least talking about maybe doing something about that.
I think that could be kind of dangerous because housing demand is so low right now and so few people are willing to take out a loan at this moment when interest rates are pretty high that the private equity firms, although they might not be our favorite source of housing demand, are at least a source of housing demand. And I don't know if we want to mess with the housing market in that way right now, but certainly a lot to talk about in the future.
Yeah, again, and then the last thing is we are getting very close to a Supreme Court ruling on these tariffs. Remember, we talked about this, 6 months ago, a trade court in the U.S. Invalidated these Liberation Day tariffs. This has been working through the Supreme Court. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that many companies had started suing the Trump administration, including Costco. That number is up to 1,000. We think a Supreme Court ruling on these tariffs could come as early as Friday. And Stacey, if that happens, I'm going to be calling you about an emergency episode.
You can call me. You can call as many times as you want, Max Chafkin. I'll take the call. How about that? I'll take the call.
All right. And I'll take that promise. Okay. And Stacey, the other thing is we got some numbers about congestion pricing in New York City.
Yes. Now, this was there's a zone in Manhattan where traffic is notoriously bad. You have a car, Max, so you know this more intimately than I do. Yes, you are a motorist. You know this more intimately than I do. But this was put in place early last year, I believe. And it was intended to both help the traffic situation in the middle of Manhattan, but also raise money.
Yeah, super controversial. And in New York, we wound up with a policy that pretty much no one liked. Donald Trump was mad about this, and a lot of
small business owners were mad about it. Commuters were mad about it.
Also, a lot of the supporters of congestion pricing were mad because they said that the price. So right now, it costs $9 to go below 63rd Street in New York City. But Stacey, we got some data. And it's starting to look pretty good for congestion pricing. Traffic is down 11% from the previous year. They've also raised a lot of money, $550 million in revenue, which
They've raised like more than $500 million.
Yeah, and that's enough,
that's
as I understand it, for the sort of the MTA, the entity that administers the subways and the trains and the buses here in New York, to do the capital improvements that they wanted to do. So like
that I am very interested in.
Basically, it's working. Like it's lowering traffic, it's raising money, it's doing the things that advocates wanted it to do, and it doesn't seem, now this is my guess, and maybe we'll find out a little bit more in a second, but it doesn't seem like people are that mad about it. They're just paying the $9 and moving on with their lives.
Although we did want to hear specifically from New Yorkers.
Yeah,
we didn't want to just take word on
Stacey.
the street. Yeah, exactly. So we sent our wonderful producer, Charlie Gorovin, out into the field to talk with real live New Yorkers about how they feel about congestion pricing.
I think it's stupid. I don't think that New York State should charge us $25 to travel in our own city that we live in.
This is one of the best cities to live in. So if you want to have the privilege to come in New York City, you should pay.
Increasing the tolls and stuff like that, I feel like it doesn't do anything for the people that has to travel out of the city to get to their job.
This is like additional tax on the people.
Yeah.
Like, what the
Do you notice less traffic?
Not as much, because it's still New York City. You know, there's a lot of people. You know, a lot of people doing whatever they got to do.
I think I've kind of noticed fewer cars, but I don't think it's great because it ices out people who have less money from the city.
It hasn't stopped me from coming in, but it's really expensive.
What do you think the way forward is if it's not more taxation?
If you make it more expensive, then less people can do it. If you just basically enable people who have more money to like enjoy the roads better.
Just perpetuating inequality.
Tolls and stuff like that are unconstitutional because it restricts freedom of movement. Like if I didn't have $25 to go through the Lincoln Tunnel, what do I do?
It just is what it is, man. New York City is a place that it doesn't stop. Everybody complained about congestion prices, but now we just have to deal with it.
I love the tolls are unconstitutional. Wow.
I mean, listen, I'm from Idaho. Lots of libertarians there. I feel like this.
Do you agree, Stacey? Are tolls unconstitutional?
Are
you ready to take this all the way to
Washington? I will
Washington?
say this. I hate tolls because in the West, we don't really have them. All the roads are free.
Freeways,
But I, logically speaking, cannot really argue against them.
As somebody who lives in New York City and drives a car sometimes, but not every day, I have found the congestion pricing like mildly annoying. Like every time I cross that barrier, I think, that's $9 I no longer have. But honestly, I've just accepted it.
But you also aren't like living at the poverty line or anything like that.
No, and I'm also not commuting every day. And I might feel differently if I were driving in every single day. This is more like a once a week kind of charge for me, not a everyday charge.
It was just like that guy said, it is what it is. If you live in New York, this is just part of the deal. Just fees, prices going up. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of my take. And then, of course, we had your take, which is never sovereign citizen forever.
That was not my take. I just noted it. It was a noted take.
Stacey, as we mentioned at the top, been kind of a crazy week or so in geopolitical news.
Yes.
The U.S., as most people listening to this know, massed a sort of military operation in Venezuela, effectively snatched, arrested the president and his wife there at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Chaos, it seems, on the streets. Also, there's economic chaos. And we wanted to kind of unpack this with the guy we go to when we're trying to understand a complicated South American economy. My friend, former Elon Inc. co-host David Papadopoulos. David, how are you?
Max, Stacey, Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year. And you were at this very moment, in fact, in Argentina. Is that right?
Yeah, I just flew right over Venezuela. We blew that one. I should have parachuted out of the plane.
So not that close, but on the right continent. But you do have a lot of experience covering the Venezuelan economy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's where I cut my teeth as a journalist 3 decades ago. It was a very different Venezuela then. It was the Venezuela that Hugo Chavez and his successor, Nicolás Maduro, were about to take over. But yes, it's a country that I've been covering throughout my career, for sure.
So we don't know where this is going to go. Right now, there's a lot of discussion about, okay, well, what happens to the Venezuelan oil? Donald Trump has said the U.S. is sort of taking it, which seems strange. I'm not sure legal, but in any case, and there are a lot of bond traders and oil company executives, a lot of people kind of in the world of business who are making moves. But we want to understand, like, how we got here, because Venezuela was once like a very rich country.
Absolutely. I mean, Venezuela, for decades, really, most of the 20th century, certainly the first 70 some odd years of the 20th century, was a stable, wealthy country. Oil was discovered there early in the 20th century, which is part of what led to a lot of that wealth. And you know, Max, oil, if you go back and look at historical charts, was really pretty stable for decades and decades. And so too, as a result, was largely the Venezuelan economy.
You mean the price of oil was stable?
The price of oil. And so both in times of Venezuelan democracy, which kind of emerged in the 60s, and the dictatorships that preceded it, the governments were pretty good for the most part. I mean, in 73, the price of oil goes bonkers. You get the Yom Kippur War, and the U.S. backs Israel. The Arab states do not take well to that. They impose an oil embargo on the United States, and the price of oil goes from $4 a barrel to $48 a barrel unbelievably quickly. And none of what's happening today, the whole Trump-Maduro thing, none of the stuff that you've seen or read about in recent months or years, none of it happens without the oil shock in 1973. Because in 1973, when oil goes from $4 to $48, and in Venezuela, they're like, holy shit, we're unbelievably rich. We're stupid rich. And they do something that in hindsight wasn't so smart. They go out and they just go on unbelievable spending binge that includes the nationalization of the oil industry. They start nationalizing all sorts of companies, steel companies and phone companies, all sorts of things with all this wealth they have.
This was the Grand Venezuela, right? This is like, it's good times and the government is sort of expansive and
just incredibly wealthy.
Spending, nationalizing, yeah.
This is the time when Venezuelans are traveling to Miami for one-day shopping trips, right? The Venezuelan bolivar, which is now worthless, essentially, so much so that you guys know I have it as some Venezuelan bolivars on my desk in the office, and I hand them out. Max has got some bolivars right there.
I've got one right here. We can talk about it later.
There was a time, actually this is the late 60s, even prior to the 73 boom, where the bolivar was such a valuable currency that people wanted across the world, that in a James Bond movie, Thunderball, the villain with the missiles trained on the UN says, hey, you got to pay me, otherwise I'm going to blow up the UN, and you're going to pay me $100 million in either Swiss franc or Venezuelan bolivars.
The two best currencies.
Venezuelans were famous for, they were known as the "Está barato, dame dos," right? Wherever they travel. That's cheap, I'll take two. Anyway, Max, what happens is with any great boom story, the money goes to your head, the boom goes bust a few years later. What happens? Stacey, your old pal Paul Volcker rides onto the scene.
Yeah, raises interest rates, causes a recession in the U.S., trying to battle inflation.
Trying to battle runaway U.S. inflation in double digits, and Volcker does indeed crush inflation. But in the process, he absolutely blows up the price of oil and many commodities. And so the price of oil, which had gone from $4 to $48, absolutely plunges back to somewhere around $10. And all that spending you had done and all that new lifestyle Venezuela, had taken on at $48 a barrel, and that you thought was like, hey, this is the new normal, suddenly is no longer possible. And by the way, one of the things I didn't say is you've also added all these public sector government workers. The Venezuela that I get to in the 1990s still has an unbelievably large public sector, huge payroll. So when oil plunges way back down, they can't pay the bills. And here begins, a 20-year economic slide from 78, when it goes boom in 78, all the way up, I would say, basically to Chavez's election, Hugo Chavez's election in 1998, the 20-year hangover.
But also the economy really tanks. I mean, this is beyond like a correction or a recession. From what I understand right now, 80% of Venezuelans live below the poverty line. And inflation reached levels that are almost unimaginable.
What happens, in the 80s and the 90s that leads to the rise of Chavez, which then Chavez gets you to Maduro, and Maduro now finds himself in jail. And yes, there is a deep economic recession in the 1980s. Venezuelans find themselves increasingly poorer and poorer. And so Hugo Chavez, the radical young lieutenant colonel who tried to overthrow the government in the early 90s, charismatic and this and that, he's up for election in 98, and he's not all that dissimilar to a Trump or a Javier Milei here in Argentina. He's this radical outsider with this, radical message, and Venezuelans are like, give me him. And so Chavez sweeps into power, wildly popular, takes the world by storm, right? Becomes this big global figure for many years. And what happens during the 2000s, basically the same thing that happened in 73. Oil goes parabolic, rises all the way to $145 a barrel. And Chavez makes all the same mistakes that they had made in the 70s. He spends it all, nationalizes unbelievable numbers of things. I mean, he just nationalizes. And by nationalizes, he purchases, with government money. So this is now a part of the government. Radio stations, TV stations, banks. I mean, you name it, he bought it. Cattle ranches, everything, right? And on top of that, he commits the sin of all sins. He kills the goose that laid the golden egg. He kills the state-run oil company, PDVSA. He starves it of money. He does not allow them to invest properly in new wells and in their infrastructure. There's an incredible brain drain. And Venezuela's oil production goes from, over 3 million barrels a day, which is a good amount for a country its size, to collapses now 20 some odd years later, all the way down to 500,000 barrels a day, which, is nothing. Texas alone, they're pumping 9 million barrels a day, for Christ's sakes. So Chavez dies in 2013 of cancer, suddenly. And he actually essentially hands a ticking time bomb to his replacer, the aforementioned Nicolás Maduro.
Stacey talked about the poverty, and David, you have these Bolivar notes that you keep on your desk, and you gave me one. And the great thing about not cleaning out your desk ever, which I don't, is it's very easy to find stuff. So anyway, I found this 20 Bolivar note that you gave me, and I was talking to some of our producers, and Julia, who's a Business Week editor, said, oh, that's 8 cents. And I was like, I don't think it's 8 cents. This is 20 Bolivars. I looked it up. It's 20 new current Bolivars would be worth 8 cents, but they've revalued the currency over and over and over again. And so I think I would need 10,000 of these to make 1 cent. The amount of inflation is just sort of mind-boggling.
It was mind-boggling inflation, and you're absolutely right, Max. Venezuela, under Maduro for a period of time, including even right now, I believe, they're not really publishing economic data because they were too embarrassed by it, the regime was. So we actually created, the Bureau and I did there several years ago, our own inflation index, the Bloomberg Café con Leche index. It's a very simple index, but it's easy to get your head around. It's just a cup of café con leche that we actually have somebody go out and buy at this shop each and every week, and we input it into the system. We track broad brushstrokes inflation in the country. And yeah, Max, there were times over the past decade where Venezuela's inflation got to 500,000%. And so yes, the value of those bolivars became just utterly worthless. And what they kept having to do is just strip zeros off the currency. Because it got to you went to go buy that café con leche, Stacey, and you need to pay 78 million bolivars, right, for a cup of coffee. There got to a period of time, this is like Weimar Republic, Germany kind of thing. We did a story years ago where you would bring your money in to buy something and they would just weigh it on their deli scale. They wouldn't count them.
As we kind of wind down, and I hate to reduce this to this question, but I think if you're sitting here in the U.S., you're wondering like, okay, like, so let's say the U.S., leaving aside the question of Venezuelan domestic politics and how damaging it might be to our cause to go around saying, like, we're going to take all the oil. But, like, is this actually going to make, like, gas prices in the U.S. cheaper, like, in the short term, in the long term, in any term?
I myself am pretty skeptical. I mean, it could happen, but, I mean, seeing is believing. Right now, Venezuela on the global stage is a tiny producer of oil. Just getting that current oil freed up and flowing more isn't going to make enough of a difference. If you then say, hey, but we, the U.S., are going to get Chevron, who's already there in Venezuela and has been there for a while, pumping more, and we're going to also induce all these other big major U.S. oil companies to go down, and we're going to really exploit, tap into that Venezuelan oil potential. Yeah, maybe, I got to say, that you pull that off, and you really get U.S. oil companies to have the confidence to sink tens of billions of dollars into that country, and that they're going to actually be able to recoup their investment because the governments that come both after Trump believe in this line and want to stick to it. And moreover, that the regime or the government in Caracas is going to want to stick to it as well. To have that confidence, I mean, you guys tell me, are you seeing any U.S. oil companies jumping up and down, ready to sink tens of billions of dollars into Venezuela? I'm not.
I was surprised at that. I was surprised at how quiet the oil companies have been and how much they've held back. And, like, they don't seem to want to jump in here.
No, I would be astonished if they did. The math is tricky.
David Papadopoulos, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Max.
So, Max, at the top of the show, we talked about our New Year's resolutions. And, of course, losing weight, going to the gym is a big one for everybody, including me. But these days, that industry looks a lot different because, of course, of GLP-1.
Yeah, the old days, you'd be like, my resolution is to eat less. My resolution is to go to the gym.
Weight
now,
Watchers points,
your resolution might be to, like, talk to your doctor about getting on GLP-1s, these weight loss drugs like Ozempic, that are changing everything.
Yes. And in fact, this number blew my mind, but more than 10% of Americans now use GLP-1s, and that has doubled from last year.
And Deena Shanker, Business Week food columnist, is here. She's got a new piece, which is online right now, Stacey, and it is all about the ways that GLP-1s, these weight loss drugs, are changing what people order at restaurants.
Yes, indeed. Extra Salt is the column, and Deena is the guest. Welcome, Deena.
Thank you so much for having me.
I wanted to start out very basically here because I assumed that GLP-1s would be a complete disaster for restaurants and for grocery stores because very famously, when you're on a GLP-1, you don't eat much. People forget to eat. They eat tiny portions. This seems like a death knell for restaurants, but it kind of hasn't been. Talk about how the restaurant industry and food industry have adapted.
Yeah, so since GLP-1s started really making headlines, the food industry has been trying to figure out what that means for them. It is pretty common in earnings calls for executives to get questions about GLP-1s.
Yeah, it seems like an existential problem.
Yes, exactly. And what we're seeing now is we're able to see how some of this is playing out. So I should say that for the grocery industry, it is mostly very bad news. People, when they go shopping, are making fewer impulse purchases. They don't want salty snacks. They don't want cookies, like all sorts of things that they used to buy. They're not buying as much as the supermarket. So sad face for the snack industry.
Okay.
But unexpectedly, restaurants can actually stand to benefit, and some of them already are. We saw some data from Circana, which said that people on GLP-1s spend more than people not on GLP-1s.
At restaurants?
Yes, at restaurants. And Numerator also had a finding specific to fast food. The biggest beneficiary is the casual dining set. And
that would be like your Chipotles.
No, that would be more of a fast casual. Casual dining would be more like an Olive Garden, a place where you're going to sit down, a waiter's going to come, but you're not at fine dining.
So they are raking it in from GLP-1s.
some of them are certainly going to be seeing and may already be seeing an uptick from GLP-1 users and their households. And so Circana, when I asked them, I was like, why? Like, what's driving this? They hadn't dug into the why specifically yet, but they had some ideas. And as soon as you start thinking about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. So one of my favorite theories, and I spoke to a GLP-1 user who had this exact experience, is basically when you are on GLP-1s, all that food noise turns off, which if you're the person in charge of putting dinner on the table in your family, that might mean days of shopping list planning, taking things out of the freezer, marinating this, picking up that all just disappears. So all of a sudden it's 6:00 on Tuesday and it's dinner time and you haven't thought about it yet. So what do you do in that situation? You go to a restaurant.
Go to the Olive Garden.
And so Olive Garden is showing up just in time with a perfect solution for these kinds of families, or I shouldn't say a perfect solution, a solution of sorts, which they say is not specifically for GLP-1 users, but I feel like we all know.
Okay.
Because, it's smaller portion sizes. And they're emphasizing the affordability side of this because the smaller portions are going to cost less money. And that also makes perfect sense and also is in line with lots of other trends that we're seeing. But for a GLP-1 user, it's perfect.
It's like tiny endless pasta or
well, the breadsticks remain endless.
Salad and breadsticks, right?
The breadsticks are certainly endless.
Okay.
I can't speak specifically to the endless nature of the salad, but the
no one wants an endless salad. That's no demand.
But the smaller portions, they tested it last year. It was successful enough that this month they are rolling it out nationwide. And
what is it?
So it's the same food. It's just less of it. When you look at the regular Olive Garden website and you look at how many calories are in their standard serving, it's like 1,200 calories in a bowl of pasta. And don't get me wrong, I could eat that. But maybe I shouldn't. And so it makes sense to just shrink it. And that is good for a GLP-1 user, but it's good for other people too.
Good for the restaurant?
It's good for the restaurant. It turns that restaurant into a destination for not just the GLP-1 user, but their whole household, which is another reason GLP-1 users may be going to restaurants more, is because when you're cooking, you don't want to make dinner for me, the GLP-1 user, and then dinner for everybody else. And so when you go to a restaurant, you have more control over your dish, and everyone has that same level of control. It's funny. It used to be that the vegetarian was the veto vote in deciding where to eat.
You are a vegetarian.
I'm a pescatarian, which I feel like some people just really need that distinction.
Okay. Noted.
Vegetarian specifically.
Yes, absolutely. I apologize.
No, it's not me. But they used to be the one who would be like, well, I looked at the menu and there's nothing for me on that menu. And one thing I heard from talking to people was that increasingly GLP-1 users can now play that veto vote role. And so you might put that on your menu and it not only brings in that one person, but it brings in their whole family, their whole group.
Can I ask, one of the things that's so interesting about these GLP-1s, and you hinted at it, is that they change how your desire for food, not just food, right? But lots of other things. I mean, there's smoking, drinking, maybe even gambling and other things like that. What do people who are on GLP-1s want in food? Do they just want like a sort of bland, they just want Soylent, basically. They just want calories with none of the experience? Or what are they actually looking for?
So one of the doctors that I spoke with told me that people's tastes definitely change on GLP-1s. Not everybody's, but a lot of people's. But they change in all kinds of different ways. And the only thing that is consistent is that they want less. Now, what they're supposed to eat is a different question. What they're supposed to eat is a lot of protein and then also fiber. And they're also supposed to stay well hydrated. That's because of the muscle loss that you can have with GLP-1s and then the fiber to help with, moving things through your system. And the hydration is also related to that. So some people will go from loving, say, McDonald's every day to finding McDonald's absolutely just gross. But some people will be like, I still love McDonald's, but I just don't have room for it anymore. And some restaurants are really catering very specifically to these groups, even more than Olive Garden. Like Smoothie King has a GLP-1 line of smoothies. A restaurant...
Just protein powder and water.
I mean, but also like Del Taco. Like fast food restaurants are also responding to this.
Yeah, so Del Taco is a good example. They had a limited time offer of a micro meal, and basically they had what they called a mini burrito, but basically they can just use like a taco tortilla and make a mini burrito. I mean, it's fun. It's like silly, right? Because it's the same thing, except it's just smaller.
This also seems like kind of a double win in certain ways for restaurants because there were all these complaints as food prices started to rise about shrinkflation and, portions getting smaller and all of these outraged people saying like, I used to get, all these chips in the bag and now it's a tiny amount of chips in the bag. This is actually restaurants like turning a bug into a feature. It's like we can save money on food and, I'm sure they don't charge maybe as much as a full-size meal, but it's probably a premium. It's not, if it's a quarter of the portion, it's probably not a quarter of the price. So it seems like a huge win.
I think so. I mean, it does. It does seem like a huge win. And whether you're on a GLP-1 or not, a lot of the time, I mentioned like some of these Olive Garden pasta bowls are like 1,200 calories. Like you might not want to eat all of that. And maybe there's not enough left to even make sense to bring leftovers home. And so you end up just feeling kind of like, or maybe you eat it all and then you feel bad. And like none of these are good outcomes for the customer and none of them really make you necessarily want to go back.
Are there any good outcomes at an Olive Garden?
It's a hot take.
Just a question.
I remember their breadsticks being great at a time in my life when I could actually eat unlimited breadsticks, enjoy it, and not wake up regretting it the next day. So
yes.
That would be when I was like 15. I remember having a really nice date there once.
Oh, wow.
Also, in those breadsticks, they fill you up. So if you have a limited budget, then Olive Garden's there for you.
So, Deena, you wrote in this piece that one of the restaurants that has kind of modified their menu is Chipotle, which is a fast casual, not a casual dining thing. Anyway, Chipotle just recently, December 18th, unveiled a new menu item, which we have here. Okay, so I'm taking out like many little cups. Now, Chipotle referred to this. I just want to get the wording right. Its first ever high protein menu featuring a new snack-ready high-protein cup. They've called this, I believe, a meat snack. Or maybe just a snack. Anyway.
A protein cup. Okay.
These are Chipotle protein cups. It is basically a tiny bowl of meat.
Yeah.
And Charlie Gorman, our very, very dedicated reporter, went to Chipotle just now and purchased 6 meat snacks.
Yeah,
I think it smells good.
It's just a bowl.
It smells like grilled meat.
Just meat.
Here, give me the chicken one. Okay, so I'm looking at the chicken and the steak. It's just like a bowl of Chipotle.
Yeah. I think it's like the portion they put in a burrito. I mean,
how much does this cost?
I think around $4, yeah.
I mean,
it's not dinner, though.
It's Chipotle chicken. I recognize it.
Could it be lunch? I feel like this could be lunch.
This could not be. It's tiny.
Maybe like 2. Well, this is coming from someone whose New Year's resolution is to join a gym, but I'm like 3 of them could be lunch. It is really interesting to me that basically Chipotle did not develop anything special for GLP-1 users. It's just packaging. Because this is like the meat they normally put in their burrito. It's stuff they already have.
It's interesting. That's pretty much what Del Taco did too. They basically used ingredients they already had and reassembled them slightly or served them in smaller portions. And that's really actually what is key to like doing this well for a restaurant business is not, overcomplicating the back of the house, not, having to, change how you procure or whatever. It's really just taking ingredients you already have and reassembling them. And I mean, so like good on Chipotle. I bet this $4 cup, I bet it does really well.
I don't think you really want to taste the inside of your Chipotle burrito without all of the fixings.
Yes, it feels like part of a kit that has yet to be assembled.
And this is nightmarish.
But this is the protein craze. Like this is what they're doing.
And if you don't care about how your food tastes.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, it tastes fine. It tastes good.
I think the chicken one is better than the steak one. The steak one is so salty.
But like, there's something like just gross about the protein craze in general.
I think I eat more salt than you do. That's like perfectly seasoned in my opinion.
Deena, you're obviously referring to the food pyramid, which just came out, which basically like replaces all the things that we were taught in school about what to eat.
It's now the inverted food pyramid.
It's now upside down, literally, which architecturally we probably need to talk about at some point. But also, like steak, butter. This is all the food groups, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they really want you eating a lot of meat on this new food pyramid, and the broccoli and the turkey are like the same size. I don't know what to make of that. There's a lot of weird stuff going on there, but there's a giant juicy steak like right in the corner of it. And
a giant stick of partially unwrapped butter right in the heart of it, which was my favorite part of the inverted pyramid.
I think my favorite part was the jug of olive oil right next to the milk.
Oh, I thought that was wine. I was like, oh, okay. Like, I thought it was an RFK Jr., like, it's good for your heart.
Come on,
But
Stacey.
it looks like a jug of wine. Tell me, who buys olive oil in a jug with a handle on it?
Deena Shanker, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Deena.
All right, Stacey, it is that time. It's time for the underrated stories. I know you've teased me with this one. Let's have it.
All right. So obviously here in New York, the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, is headed to court. And the judge presiding over the case, his name is Alvin Hellerstein, and he is 92. They have a 92-year-old judge, yes. And this judge has been a thorn in the side of the Trump administration for a while. He ruled against President Trump in the Stormy Daniels case. He twice rejected Trump's bids to move the case to federal court, and also the deportation of immigrants he also has blocked. But he is presiding over the case with Maduro.
Now, I feel like we're doing this again. We did this last episode or 2 episodes ago with Phillip Rivers, who was briefly the quarterback of the Colts despite being 45 years old. And now we have a very old judge. And once again, it's the same kind of vibes, right? You're just like, good for you.
I know. I hope I'm doing my job when I'm 92.
Do we want our judges to be non-genarians? Is that a good thing, Stacey?
I think it could be a really good thing. He's got a ton of experience. He knows the law. He's not trying to like angle to get some huge turning point in his career. He's very established. And as long as, he does a good job, I'm all for it.
You may be right. And that brings us to my underrated story of the week.
Tell me.
All right. So this is a headline in the New York Times. And Stacey, I got to warn you, there's a lot going on in this one.
Okay.
Headline, Can You Optimize Love? Subhead, a group of tech executives, app developers, and Silicon Valley philosophers is seeking to streamline the messy matters of the heart. This is a lovely
Something shouldn't be optimized,
story.
But I'm very curious about this.
By Amanda Hess, and oh my God, Stacey, it is so funny. There are so many just like weird, cringy things.
Yeah, how are they optimizing love?
So, you know how like they're just some sort of like basic things that everyone knows because they've been passed down from human history, from, time immemorial, about like how to find a mate, like, wash your face, like wear presentable, whatever.
Wash your face?
Or, whatever. Like there's just some basics. And it seems like these
Washing
guys.
Your face is a basic.
That is a basic.
Sure, yes.
And these guys are like, let's start from scratch. Let's figure out like all the elements let's think about like meeting like love the way we think about maybe buying or selling a digital advertisement or something. Here's a quote from the story from the social media manager of one of these companies. The company's called Keeper. He says, so the system, men say, is intended to go beyond a user's, quote, general mate value factor, end quote, to honor each user's idiosyncratic desires. Mr. Ash, this is the social media manager, provided an example from his research. Quote, if the woman is about half a standard deviation more agreeable than the man, that's the optimal point for relationship durability. He said. So it's like.
Wait, what is this half a degree more? Agreeable?
I have no freaking clue.
Wait, what is that term again?
About have a standard deviation more agreeable than the man. That's the optimal point for relationship durability. I think he's saying that the woman should be a little bit hotter than the man. That's what I'm taking from this.
No, I think it's a lot more like smiling and saying
more
I see what you're agreeable
saying.
as a person. Sort of like, yes, grits are such a great idea.
Okay, either way, it's gross. I should also note that later in this article, you learn that the social media manager in question on his own personal dating profile has a quote that says, "I love eugenics," which the company keeper has said is not their official position. You'll be happy to know. He is still a social media manager. I also want to say that like everyone in this story, and I think this is because the photographer went to like one of these cuddle parties, everyone is wearing socks in their portraits. So, here are the founders.
My brain is still on cuddle parties.
Here are the founders of this company, and they're all wearing socks. And I just feel like, guys, I know this is basic.
Part of optimizing for love, not constricting your feet.
If you want to, meet that special someone, just maybe put on some shoes.
Wash your face and put on some shoes. I think, it doesn't, we do not have to make it more complicated than it is. Wash your face, put on some shoes. And maybe do not ever use words about being more agreeable. Ever. That is my unsolicited advice.
This show is produced by Stacey Wong. Magnus Hendrickson is our supervising producer, and Amy Keene, our executive producer. Sam Rogich handles engineering, and Dave Purcell fact checks. Sage Bauman heads Bloomberg Podcasts. Special thanks to Jeff Muskus, Julia Rubin, Charlie Gorovin, and Maria Ling, and the Chipotle on 62nd Street. If you have a minute, please rate and review the show. It means a lot to us. And if you have a story that should be our business, email us at everybodies@bloomberg.net. That's everybody's with an S at bloomberg.net. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.